How can building less actually help you build a better no-code app? We're going to dig into that today. We're going to talk about how you can strip back a lot of the extra, and by doing so, how that can help you launch a whole lot faster and ultimately build a better product. Now, make sure you stick around for all of this because some of the mistakes that we're going to talk about today, those can lead to really lengthened and delayed development timeframes, which obviously mean delayed launches, and they can really make it hard for you to optimize your app once you are at the point of being able to scale, which you don't want. So make sure you stick around for all of this. Now, first, if you're new around here, my name is Kristen, and I'm the co-founder of Coaching No Code Apps, where we help non-technical entrepreneurs build custom apps so they can start their app-based businesses or grow their existing businesses, all without coding and with no technical background required. So we're going to talk about how building less and how stripping away all of the extra that you want to build right now can really help you in the long run. So I'm going to share my screen here. We're going to jump over to the whiteboard and we're going to go through this a little bit. So down in this very first circle here, I want you to think about this as being your version 1 app. Okay, so this is the core of your product. And if you've seen any of our other videos or been with us for a while, you know that we advise building, testing, and launching your no-code app in phases so that you can launch sooner, get the right feedback, and best optimize your product. So in this very middle circle here, we have version 1. This is the core product that solves the core problem for your core user. So over here, solving the core problem. Now, this is important because when you build too much too early on and you wait to launch your app until you have all these extra features in place, then you're building for these next circles too. Okay, so V1, version 1, it's the core problem. When you get out here, right? Look at these as being the next stages in your development, your testing, and your launch, where you're building different things, you're testing for different things, and you're kind of soft launching for different purposes. All right. When you get to those stages, what you're really wanting to do is, number 1, solve the core problem better, which can mean just literally solving it better, getting feedback that helps you solve it better, or solve it more. And that means maybe adding on features that solve different components of the same problem, or solving related problems that help better solve that core problem. So you're really just taking this down here and you're expanding on top of that, but you're doing a couple of other things too. You're also developing and testing for experience, your user's experience. And notice that's not really included in that initial V1 circle. Now, that doesn't mean you're giving users a bad experience, but it means that you're not necessarily putting your full focus on experience in that early stage. Okay, so as you start testing and as you move into those next stages, that's when you're going to be focusing more on experience and adoption. Okay, solving the core problem and adopting a solution that solves a core problem, those are two different things. All right, so what I see a lot of people doing is, instead of just focusing on V1 in here, they go out here, and this is before ever launching to any initial users. They go into this next stage and they already start building more to solve the problem better in ways that they think it will be solved better. And they start solving the problem more in ways they think are relevant. And they start thinking about experience and adoption in ways that they are thinking are going to be relevant. And they move out to the next stage and they do that again. And this entire time, it's really important to understand there are no users on board. Okay, there are no users, but I see this happening constantly. Okay, so a founder starts here, moves all the way up here without bringing users on board. And often this is 12 months of time or more. if you're falling into this right now, listen very closely, okay? But the reality is you cannot get this right, this section up here, or this section down here, unless you get this right? The core, your V1. Can't get those other sections right until you get the core right. And you cannot know whether the core is right until you test it with users, okay? You can't solve the core problem, or you can't know that you're solving the core problem correctly until you bring users on board and you actually ask them. You actually watch them and observe them and take feedback from them. Okay, so it's really important to build version 1 and not get sucked in to these things over here, right? Solving the problem more, solving the problem better, giving the user a better experience, helping the user adopt the app better, because you cannot know what better means until you test the core product. Unless you test it, you are guessing on what better means, and you are usually not going to be your user. Sometimes you are, but even then, you're too attached to the app. You have to have other people coming on board and giving you feedback to help you understand what better means. Okay, so this is really important. So what I want to do now is jump over to a couple of app examples. Okay, so on the screen here, I have Dropbox, Airbnb, and Hootsuite. Okay, these are all different tools that you are probably at least somewhat familiar with. That's why I chose to go into these. And I want to show you what it means to build the core product and what it means to then optimize on that using these actual examples. Because what I often see happening is founders, entrepreneurs will look at these apps that they use every day and they see these really full, robust apps that solve lots of different problems, that solve problems really well. Maybe they cater to different user types. They have really great experiences, all of these things, right? They see these apps, they use these apps. And so then they want to build their app to do the same. But it's easy to forget or to just not think about the fact that even these apps that you use every day, they started by solving a core problem and then expanding on top of that. So let's look at Dropbox. So let's see here, if we hover over the features menu item on Dropbox's menu bar, you can get kind of a snapshot of what their features are. Now, Dropbox is ultimately, actually, this is a good exercise. If I were to ask you, what's Dropbox for? Assuming you are at least a little bit familiar with Dropbox, what would you say? Right? Think about that right now. What would you say? What is Dropbox for? To me, it's for storing files and sharing files. Right? If you look at the list of features, they have a lot of other features too. But if you describe an app that you use in a really simple way, then you're probably usually describing the core of the product. Where if that core problem solution or that core tool doesn't exist or that core capability doesn't exist, none of the other features matter. Okay, so if we look at Dropbox, we have the ability to share files, store and back up. Okay, so storing and sharing files. Now, if you look at the other features, syncing devices. This is not necessarily critical to being able to store and share files. Simplifying e-signatures, definitely not critical, right? Being productive, having a desktop, a mobile app, working remotely, organizing a team, like none of these things are actually, none of them have to be in place in order to store and share files. They just don't have to be there. You can store and share files without having those other things there. But if you had those other things there and not storing and sharing files, then it wouldn't work, right? So until Dropbox can provide a solution that lets you store and share files in a way that works, then none of the rest of it is relevant. So what do you think they're going to do in their first round of testing? Probably make sure that users can store and share files well, right? And then expand. Okay, now look at Airbnb. Airbnb, you are either renting out a room, a home, an apartment, or you are renting a place to stay. Now, Airbnb has a ton of different features, right? You can explore nearby areas. You can get inspired to go on trips. You can discover different things to do once you're taking your trips, right? Think about this feature right here, discover things to do. So there are Airbnb experiences, online experiences, in-person experiences. Well, do you think that having Airbnb experiences would actually work or be relevant if people could not effectively rent out their homes or rooms and rent places to stay? No, this feature is dependent on the core feature. And plenty of other ones on here are too. But if you don't have that core capability down, then you're not going to add on something extra that's dependent on that core capability working, because it makes no sense. You're building too much. And then if you pretend like Airbnb launched with the ability to rent out a room and to rent a room and the ability to book these experiences once you get somewhere. Well, if they launched with that and then they're trying to test and optimize on both of those things, those are two very different things. Now that Airbnb is what it is, they mesh together really well. It all makes sense. But if they initially launched with both of those things, they're very different. And then they're going to be trying to optimize and figure out and get feedback on both of these things and figure out how to make them work together. But of course, that's not what they did, because they solved the core problem first, provided the core solution first, and then expanded on that over time. Airbnb had been around for years before they introduced this extra feature and a lot of the other features, but this is just a good example. So let's look at Hootsuite. Hootsuite helps you manage your social in one place. So you can create content and share it across multiple social media channels all at once. Okay. Now, if we hover over platform, this shows us all the different Hootsuite features. So you can publish, right? You can engage. So after you share, if people are commenting on your posts and that type of thing, then you can engage with people. You can monitor market trends, competitors, you can advertise, you can see all of your results and analyze the stats. You can work with ads, right? You can do all of these different things. I don't specifically know what all of them are, but you can see there are many different features on here and lots of different platforms. You can work with Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, Pinterest. There's a lot going on here. But what is the one thing that has to work and work well before any of the other extras are introduced? Well, you have to be able to schedule and share, right? That's the core of Hootsuite, is you come on, you schedule content, and it's shared across different platforms. If you cannot do that, then the engagement doesn't matter. Monitoring market trends and competitors, that doesn't matter. Moving into ads, that doesn't matter, right? None of that matters. And even the number of platforms they have on here, even that is not relevant. If you can't share, or if you can't schedule and publish to one or two different platforms effectively, then you're not going to be able to do it for 5 or 6 or more, right? And so Hootsuite at the core has to be able to solve that core problem of being able to schedule and share content, right? In order for any of the rest to be relevant. If they tried to launch all of these features at once, it'd be a mess. They wouldn't know how to test. Even building all those features and testing and just iterating, even in development, users aside, it's just a mess. You have to be able to strategically build out the app and test in the right phases in order to know what better means, right? Hootsuite would not know what better meant unless they started with their core product and actually took user feedback to help them expand the rest of it. Your users should help you expand the rest of it. Okay, so what I see happening all the time is, let's pretend like I see a bunch of Hootsuites being built. I see them being built with every single one of these features, sometimes more, before ever bringing users on board. And I'm talking about all different kinds of apps, all different kinds of industries. I mean, everything, right? It's a constant. All of these features and more without ever bringing a single user on board. Okay, you have to move away from that because if you don't, again, you're going to be really delaying your launch by a lot, right? A year or more. I see that a lot. You're going to have a really hard time testing. I use the word mess because that's what it's going to feel like. It's going to feel like just banging your head against the wall and just clutter and mess. It's not fun and it's not effective for you to actually get the app out there, right? And if you do bring users on board after doing something like that, building an app like that, you're going to have a hard time getting the right feedback and then optimizing your product on top of that correctly and making it all work. So strip away the extra, right? Strip away the extra, start with that version 1 core, solve the core problem so that you can know what better means as you're building a better product and scaling your business. All right, now if you are just getting started with your app, maybe you started some development or maybe you haven't started at all and you want to do so correctly, we have a training that does a deep dive into the next steps that you need to take. It's over at coachingnocodeapps.com/workshop. It's going to walk you through the initial steps of this, making sure you're building the right product and launching the right product. It's important. And what to do next as well. It's going to talk about some of your no-code tools and really just how to strategically get your app out there and start actually growing your business. So head to coachingnocodeapps.com/workshop for that. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.